Good day, class. Let's begin a short discussion of Chapter 2, Job Analysis and Evaluation. The learning objectives are: understand the definition and uses of job analysis, know how to write a job description, know how to conduct a job analysis to some extent, learn when to use the various job analysis methods, understand the concept of job evaluation, understand the concept of pay equity. Job analysis. Well, what is it? Well, job analysis is a family of formal methods for describing jobs and human attributes necessary for jobs. The process should be systematic. The job is broken into smaller units, results in some written product. There are two major approaches: job-oriented and person-oriented. The unit of analysis is the job. That's the focus, not the individual. Job-oriented job analysis. It focuses on the task of the job. Functions of the job are broken down in positions, duties, tasks, activities, and elements. The person-oriented job analysis provides a description of the characteristics, the KSAOs, necessary for a person to be successful in a particular job. The KSAOs, the K, knowledge, skill, ability, and other personal characteristics. So, know how to do the task. You can do the task. You have a capability to learn to do a task. And then the other personal characteristics or attributes needed for conducting that job. Now, one of the key things that should be emphasized greatly in this chapter and in our conversation here is the importance of a job analysis. Many things stem from the job analysis. It's the most fundamental thing that we work on. So the importance of a job analysis. Well, it's important because it does several things that we want to highlight here: writing job descriptions, employee selection, training, person power planning, performance appraisal, job classification, job evaluation, job design, compliance with legal guidelines, and organizational analysis. So the job description entails what the job is involved in, what the job entails. Employee selection, who to hire. Training, what activities to be trained. Person power planning, involving promoting within an organization where needed. Performance appraisal, job-related performance using specific categories and provides sources of training as well. Job classification, which jobs tend to cluster together. Job evaluation, being the value of a specific job. Job design, the best way to do the job. Compliance with legal guidelines, decisions based on job-related information provides legal support. And organizational analysis. A job analysis may uncover problems within the organization during a job analysis interview. For example, obtaining information about a job by talking to a person performing it. So here are the job description sections. We have the job title, brief summary, work activities, tools and equipment used, job context, work performance, compensation information, and job competencies. We'll look at some examples as we go. But the job title is an accurate job title informs such things as the power held by the position, their competencies, and so on. Sometimes a wrong job title can mislead or impact pay. For example, someone who has a low-sounding title tends to get a low salary. But in actuality, they may be performing activities beyond their job title and performing activities greater than their actual pay would indicate. Also, job titles give us a sense of identity and a sense of worth. Brief summary. Briefly describe the nature and purpose of the job. Work activities. Lists the tasks and activities in which the worker is involved. Tools and equipment used. Lists all the tools and equipment used to perform the work activities listed. Job context. Describes the environment the employee works in, schedule, physical demands, coworkers, level of responsibility, and so on. Work performance. Outlines the standards of performance, how they will be evaluated in expected standards. Compensation information. Here, salary grade information is provided. A grade is a cluster of jobs of similar worth. Job competencies. This section contains competencies or the knowledge, skills, and abilities and other characteristics needed to perform a job. Job specifications, an older term that refers to the knowledge, skills, and abilities needed to successfully perform a job. Job title. So again, this describes the nature of the job. It assists in employee selection and recruitment. It allows someone looking for a particular job to review the title, and if the title is accurate, you have a better idea whether or not you are suited for that particular job. It affects perceptions of job worth and status. It will have an impact on the job evaluation results, how someone is paid for a particular job. Employees' feelings of personal worth can be a lot tied into the job title itself. And it affects clarity of resumes. So the job title tells a lot and informs a lot if you're looking at somebody's resume as well. What was the job title? Here we see an example of a job title from the textbook Bookkeeper for the True Value Credit Union. We'll see this as an example as we go through some of these slides. So, the brief summary. The brief summary for the bookkeeper. Under the general supervision of the office manager, the bookkeeper is responsible for all of the accounting duties of the office. Specifically, the bookkeeper is responsible for keeping all financial records accurate and up to date, processing loans, and preparing and posting statements, reports, and bonds. So again, this type of information is useful for recruitment advertising. It should be written in an easy to understand style. Jargon and abbreviations should not be used. Work activities. We organize these work activities by dimensions. We have similar activities, similar KSAOs, or temporal order. Just to note, the Occupational Information Network, or ONET, is a great source to get some of this type of information. Work activities. The work activities of the bookkeeper are divided into 7 main functional areas. Here are a couple of them here. Accounting activities being one, and clerical activities being another. So, prepares quarterly income statements, maintains and posts all transactions in general ledger book, pays credit union bills, and looking down below, looks up members' account information when requested, answers phone, makes copies of transactions for members. So what we see here is a clear line drawn between certain types of activities. The accounting activities that the person is required to do, as well as the clerical activities. It removes any ambiguity by having these activities listed in the job description. Task statements. Lists only one activity per statement. Statements should be able to stand alone. They should be written in an easy-to-understand style. So what we've seen so far with a couple of these slides is about the language, how it should be written. It's written for the most people to understand without any ambiguity what is being stated. We don't want to have too many words and word choices that will be making it difficult to understand. We use precise rather than general words. For example, the general words listed here: responsible for, oversees, handles accounts. Exactly what do these things mean? They leave some room for question. So look at some of the other work activities here for financial operations activities. See the specificity here. Scans business/financial environment to identify potential threats and opportunities. Makes recommendations to the board regarding investments. Invests all excess money into accounts that will earn interest. Computes profits and amounts to be used for investments, and so on. So here we have very specific statements. We have one activity per statement, and it's very clear what is the expectation when it comes to these tasks for the financial operations activities for bookkeeper. Job context. The bookkeeper spends the majority of time making entries in and in balancing journals and ledgers. The workday is spent in a climate-controlled office with 4 co-workers. Physical demands are minimal, and sitting is required for most of the day. Work hours are Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 5 p.m., with an unpaid hour for lunch. No weekend or holiday work is required, and overtime seldom occurs. Psychological stress is usually low, but becomes moderate when dealing with an angry customer. So we have the work schedule, the degree of supervision, ergonomic information, physical and psychological stress, indoors or outdoors, lighting, heating concerns. Those types of things are of great importance here. Now, one thing we don't see as clear here as you look at it, it doesn't really talk that much about supervision. All right, but it says that it implies here that most of the things that will be done is going to be under the control of the bookkeeper. Work performance. It describes how performance is evaluated. This section might include such things as standards used, the frequency of evaluation, the evaluation dimensions themselves, and the person doing the evaluation. Let's look at the example for the bookkeeper for work performance. The bookkeeper is evaluated annually, every year, by the office manager using the credit union's standard performance appraisal system. Having a standard system of appraisal is good. And to receive an excellent performance appraisal, the bookkeeper should maintain neat and accurate records, meet all deadlines, maintain an orderly office, make sure all ledgers and journals balance, perform duties of other jobs when the need arises, and have a good attendance record. So it highlights some of the key areas that they are very interested in evaluating the performance of this particular worker. Then we have compensation information. Here we have job evaluation dimensions. So discussing the compensation, what jobs are going to be probably, what category it's going to be in, whether or not it's going to be exempt status or not, its pay grade, its job group, okay? And so what we see here for compensation information, we have here listed as a grade 6, the FLSA, which is the Fair Labor Standards Act, okay, is non-exempt. So the federal law and Fair Labor Standards Act, the term exempt refers to the jobs that are excluded from these overtime requirements. This means that employees are not entitled to or exempt from overtime pay regardless of how many hours are worked. The term non-exempt refers to jobs that are not exempt from legal overtime requirements. So here we look at the EEO1 categories. We have officials and managers, professionals, technicians. Here we have it under administrative support workers. I was able to locate the bookkeeper. So we have jobs involving non-managerial tasks, providing administrative and support assistance, primarily in office settings. An example, office and administrative support workers, bookkeeping, accounting, auditing, clerks, etc., and so forth. So in this very detailed job description, what we've seen so far is a great deal of information that should remove much doubt as to what they're being asked to do. The next area is job competencies. Common names. Job competencies, we have knowledge, skill, ability, and other characteristics, the KSAOs, and job specifications, as I mentioned earlier. Competencies should be separated. Those needed before hire and those that can be learned after hire. Now, note the following. When someone is being hired, they're being hired for what they currently possess by way of what they can do and the knowledge that they possess. But at the same time, we're also hiring with an understanding that they will have to learn additional stuff too. So we sort of try to predict to some extent, will they be able to learn the other aspects of the job that are going to be required for them ultimately. So competencies should be separated by those things that we hire them for and what they will have to have later. So looking here at the job competencies, upon hire, the bookkeeper must have a high school diploma and a basic knowledge of math and English, understand financial documents, be able to make limited financial decisions, have completed advanced coursework in accounting and finance, be skilled in using Microsoft Excel and Word. After hire, the bookkeeper must learn general office procedures, learn the style of credit union accounting procedures and regulations, and learn how to complete the various forms. Who will conduct the job analysis? So now we've talked about the key item that is produced from a job analysis, the job description, and all the things that it tells us about a specific job. Now we want to see who will conduct this most important job analysis. So, in preparing for a job analysis, we need to identify who will do it. We could use internal sources, could be trained HR professionals, other employees with proper training, but this may place a strain on the system time doing their regular jobs. For example, if you're using employees that have very important jobs or key jobs already to do this type of stuff, well, you're taking them out of the workforce for a bit so they can do this. So that's one thing too that needs to be examined, as well as are they going to be compensated in some fashion for this work as well. We also see, for example, other external resources can be used as well. Okay, so we have internal, but we have others too. The internal task force, supervisor, employees, consultants, interns, and class projects. These are all things which are available to the organization. So first they may look internally, or they may look outside. For example, consultants who have the training and experience but are intended to be expensive. Another alternative, again, is using interns who have been trained but may lack a great deal of experience but are very cost effective for the organization. So these are important things to consider for this very important task. Changes to the job analysis and job description, how often do they occur? If the job changes significantly, especially with fast changing technical jobs, so updates may usually be more often. Less often may be decades for some less technical jobs, meaning the job really hasn't changed that much in years, okay, compared to a job that is very technically emphasized. They may change very, very often. Job crafting is an idea as well. It can occur. This is a process in which employees unofficially change their duties to better fit their interest and skills. So sometimes a little bit of tweaking of the job can be done by the actual employee at times to craft it to make it more exciting for them. Of course, the organization would tend to have to agree with this as well. So which employees should participate? We have choices such as all employees. If few workers, then all. Okay, but again, some organizations, the size may make it not logical or feasible for them to do that. Do a random sample where all have a chance of being able to participate, or a representative sample which reflect the workforce makeup, or simply those who are available using a convenient sample. Now, there are potential differences depending on who you use. They can yield different results. Job competency, we have high competency versus low competency workers. Race may influence how jobs are seen. Gender may influence how jobs are seen as well. And education level and viewpoint also produce different views of job. This is not saying that this can't be done, but understand that different flavors or different results are going to be the outcome depending on who you're using. For example, if you have high competent workers, they may see the job a little bit differently than low competency workers and things of that nature. So we see the same thing too at different levels of organization. They may view jobs differently as well depending on where you are in the organization. What types of information should be obtained? Types of requirements. We have a formal, things known to be part of the official job, and then informal, things done but not part of the official job. So we have things that are going to be listed in that very thorough job description. But there may be items that aren't listed there, but things that people who were in that position for years, and even one who had the position beforehand, may have done things which have been informally there. Okay, these things are done but not part of the official job. Now, the idea is that this stuff happens, but there can be some potential issues depending on legal concerns. I can't go into ideas right now about as to what these things may be done, but if they're not listed in the job description, and if there's any hint of impropriety or something about that, they can really leave the organization in a very difficult situation. Then we have, after types of requirements, we have the levels of specificity. What is truly needed? So here, let's look at the levels of specificity of the job that we've talked about, of the work activities here. So we have job, loan officer, position, loan officer at Boone Branch, the duty, approval of loans, the task, investigates loan history to determine if applicant has bad credit, the activity, runs credit histories on credit machine, the element, enters applicant's social security number into credit machine, the sub-element, elevates fingers 30 degrees before striking key. So we see levels of specificity getting more and more specific, all the way down to the sub-element. Now, it may not need to go that far, but this is what we need to have to understand. We have a decision to make about what types of requirements we're going to be looking at and how specific do we want to be. So, conducting a job analysis, the basic steps. In the basic steps of conducting a job analysis, we identify tasks performed, step 1. Step 2, write task statements. Step 3, rate task statements. Step 4, determine essential KSAOs. Step 5, select tasks to tap into KSAOs. Remember, the job analysis is going to be serving certain key functions of the organization. One of them is going to be trying to determine who you're going to hire eventually to fill a position in your organization. So you want to be able to have tests available to you, for example, to tap into the knowledge, skills, abilities, and other characteristics which are going to be key to performing a particular job at your organization. So, step 1, gathering existing information, interviewing subject matter experts. Okay, so the idea is that the results of these procedures will yield a set of important objectives and behaviors necessary to meet them. These behaviors can be used to create employee selection tests, developing training programs, or evaluate the performance of current employees. So we're gathering existing information, we're interviewing the subject matter experts. It can be very structured, and probably should be, where you have a certain set of questions that you ask each individual that you're interviewing. Okay, these subject matter experts can be at a conference. You can get them that way, or you can go visit them, like I had to often do wherever they were at a particular facility. We also have the Ammerman technique, a job analysis method at which a group of job experts identifies the objectives and standards to be met by the ideal worker. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later, actually. All right, so we have observing incumbents doing the job, or job participation is also a way. A job analysis method in which the job analyst actually performs the job being analyzed. So you learn more about the job by doing it. Okay, so let's look at this, the Ammerman technique real briefly here. So this is the basic steps for Ammerman technique are as follows. Again, this is the technique to utilizing the idea of an ideal worker to start to analyze a job. So you convene a panel of experts that includes representatives of all levels of the organization, because they all may have different views of a particular job, to have the panel identify the objectives and standards that are to be met by the ideal incumbent. 3. Have the panel list the specific behaviors necessary for each objective or standard to be attained. 4. Have the panel identify which of the behaviors from step 3 are critical to reaching the objective. And step 5, have the panel rank order the objectives on the basis of importance. So again, this gives us a reservoir of great information about a particular job, and in this case also about a particular job and how it should be performed by an ideal worker. Step 2, rewrite task statements. The required elements to a task statement is an action and an object. The optional elements are going to be where the task is done, how it is done, why it is done, and when it is done. Once the tasks have been identified, the next step is to write the task statements that will be used in a task inventory and included in the job description as seen in the next slide. So step 2, write task statements. Characteristics of well-written task statements are one action and one object. Appropriate reading level. Again, we're stressing here that you're writing in a language that can be mostly understood by most people. The statement should make sense by itself, does not require additional information. All statements should be written in the same tense. Should include the tools and equipment used to complete the task. And task statements should not be competencies. Task statements should not be policies. They should be tasks. Here's an example of a poorly written and properly written task statement. So for the poorly written task statement, sends purchase requests. Better way to do it is sends purchase requests to purchasing department using campus mail. Poorly written task statement, drives. Or you should say, drives a 5-speed truck to make food deliveries within the city of Toledo. Poorly written task statement, locks hall doors. Better written, uses master key to lock hall doors at midnight so that non-residents cannot enter the residence hall. So what we're seeing here, we see the properly written task statements should be able to stand on their own, communicate a very clear idea of what the worker is supposed to be doing, and providing all the required information to remove all potential doubt or confusion. So what is wrong with these task statements? We have handles customer's complaint, type, files, and distributes correspondence, utilizes decision-making skills and abilities, in charge of the copy machine, uses the computer to balance department budget, responsible for opening and closing the office, greets visitors, examines supervisor's daily schedule, and oversees the office. Task statements should be written at a level that can be read and understood by a person with the same reading ability as the typical job incumbent. All task statements should be written in the same tense. The task statement should include the tools and equipment used to complete the task. Task statements should not be competencies. Be a good writer. Task statement should not be a policy. Treats people nicely. The statement should make sense by itself. That is, makes photocopies, does not provide as much details as makes photocopies of transactions for credit union members, which indicates what types of materials are photocopied and for whom they are copied. For those activities that involve decision-making, the level of authority should be indicated. This level lets the incumbent know which decisions she is allowed to make on her own and which she needs approval for from a higher level. To practice writing task statements, write 10 task statements for your current job or one that you have had recently. So, step 3. Rate task statements. Tasks can be rated on a variety of scales. We can look at importance, part of the job, the frequency of performance, time spent, relative time spent, complexity, criticality. Research shows only 2 scales are necessary, and they are importance, that is importance and frequency. So how important is it and how often you have to do it? So here is an example of a rating scale here, looking at frequency and importance, the two items from the rate task statements which are seen as being necessary. We have frequency. The task is not performed as part of the job, 0. 1, the task is seldom performed. 2, the task is occasionally performed. Or 3, the task is frequently performed. Frequency. Importance, 0. Unimportant. There will be no negative consequence if the task were not performed or not performed properly. 1, important. Job performance would be diminished if tasks were not completed properly. 1. 2, essential. The job could not be performed effectively if the incumbent did not properly complete this task. So by using this scale, we can really get some idea of what the task statements hierarchy actually is by looking at the frequency and the importance. So using the ratings, we create a chart summarizing the ratings, add the frequency and importance ratings to form a combined rating for each task, include the task in the final task inventory if the average rating is greater than 0.5 for both frequency and importance, or combined rating is 2 or higher. So we have here a chart that summarizes some example information. We have tasks in the far left column here, task number 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we have the 2 raters here, Scully and Mulder. We have them rate frequency and importance. And then we have a combined rating, frequency and importance, and then a combined rating for Mulder as well. And then the combined average of frequency and importance here. All right, so F frequency, I importance, and CR combined rating. Tasks will not be included in the job description if their average frequency rating is 0.5 or below. Tasks will not be included in the final task inventory if they have either an average rating of 0.5 or less on either frequency or importance, or importance scales, or an average combined rating of less than 2. Using these criteria, tasks 1, 2, and 4 in this table would be included in the job description, and tasks 2 and 4 would be included in the final task inventory used in the next step of job analysis. Step 4. Once the task analysis is completed, and a job analyst has a list of tasks that are essential for the proper performance of a job, the next step is to identify the KSAOs needed to perform the task. So step 4, determine essential KSAOs. Knowledge, a body of information needed to perform a task, the skill, the proficiency to perform a certain task, ability, a basic capacity for performing a wide range of different tasks, acquiring knowledge or developing a skill, and other characteristics. These are personal factors such as personality, willingness, interest, and motivation, and such tangible factors as licenses, degrees, and years of experience. So let's look at some different KSAOs for different occupations. So we have knowledge, skills, ability, and other. A lawyer, knowledge, constitutional rights. Skill, writing clearly. Ability, communication. Other, willingness to work long hours. Job, nurse. Knowledge, surgical procedures. Skill, drawing blood. Ability, remain calm in crisis. Other, lack of squeamishness and the sight of blood. Job, plumber. Knowledge, pipe design. Skill, soldering joints. Ability, hand-eye coordination. Other, willingness to get dirty. Job, teacher. Knowledge, learning principles. Skill, writing clearly. Ability, relate to children. Other, commitment to learning. Step 5. Selecting tests to tap into KSAOs. The average ratings obtained from Step 4 will be used to weight test scores, that is, a test tapping into KSAOs with a rating of 2. Should receive more, a rating of 2.9, I think is the example I want to think of. A rating of 2.9 should receive more weight than a test of tapping a KSO with a rating of 2.5. So the idea here is as we get these numbers and these ratings, 2.9 should be having more weight than items of 2.5. So once the important KSAOs have been identified, the next step is to determine the best method to tap into the KSAOs needed at the time of hire. These methods will be used to select new employees and include such methods as interviews, work samples, where you get someone who's trying to get a particular type of job, you give them some work to do, which is prototypical of that type of job. So they'll be doing this when they're actually working. In one interview I remember I was involved in, we had someone utilizing Excel to complete a certain type of project, in a really small project, utilizing an Excel spreadsheet. We have ability tests, personality tests, reference checks, integrity tests. Biodata and assessment centers are methodologies that can be employed to tap into these various knowledge, skills, abilities, and other characteristics. Using other job analysis methods. These methods tend to provide information on one of 4 specific factors that are commonly included in a job description: worker activities, tools and equipment used, work environment, and competencies. Methods providing general information about worker activities. We have the PAQ, the Position Analysis Questionnaire, 194 items, 6 main dimensions of information input, mental processes, work output, relationship with others, job context, and others. It is easy to use, it's standardized, but difficult to read for average employee. Then we have Job Structure Profile, designed as a replacement for the PAQ, easier to read than the PAQ, good reliability. We have the Job Elements Inventory, 153 items, 10th grade reading level, correlates highly with the PAQ. Then we have Functional Job Analysis, looking at data, people, and things. We have the Job Components Inventory, 400 questions, 5 main categories: tools and equipment, perceptual and physical requirements, mathematical requirements, communication requirements, decision-making, and responsibility. It has good reliability. Threshold Traits Analysis, 33 items, 5 main categories, looking at physical traits, mental traits, learned traits, motivational traits, social traits, reliable, short, and quick to use. We have the Job Adaptability Inventory, 132 items, 8 adaptability dimensions: handling emergencies, handling work stress, solving problems creatively, dealing with uncertainty, learning, interpersonal adaptability, cultural adaptability, physically orienting adaptability. We have the structured job analysis methods for information about KSLs. We have personality-related position requirements form, 107 items and 12 personality dimensions. The Fleischman Job Analysis Survey, 72 abilities and has good reliability. So we see there are a variety of types of techniques to analyze the job. And depending on the organization and the population within that organization, you may prefer one over the other. Now, one that I have some familiarity with is the critical incident technique. Job incumbents generate incidences of excellent and poor performance. Job experts examine each incident to determine if it is an example of good or poor performance. 3 incumbents sort incidents into categories. Job analyst combines and names the categories. The 3 incumbents resort incidents into combined categories. And the number of incidents per category provides an idea of the importance of each category. So what you have here is a situation in which you have individuals who are familiar with this job, okay, personally familiar with the job, and they're going to generate incidents of poor performance and excellent performance, all right? Job experts examine each of them, okay, to see if it's a good or poor performance. The 3 incumbents sort them into categories. The analyst then resorts them and names those categories. The incumbents comes back, resort the incidents into combined categories, and then the number of incidents per category provides an idea of the importance of each category. So that takes us to this. So now we have categories, and we have these excellent, poor types of examples. So interest in residence, availability, responsibility, fairness. These are the categories that have been decided on. And then you say we have 31 examples of excellent for interest in residence, 19 examples of poor. Availability, 14 excellent, 27 poor. Responsibility, 12 excellent, 20 poor. So that's what this results in. And what it tells you, if you look at the total column, you can see which ones seem to be, from all the examples they came up with, seem to be the ones they have sort of a shared interest in, saying that, yes, we agree, these are some of the examples, and these may have greater importance overall. Now, one interesting thing about this, the critical incident technique, it really gives us a good anchoring, so to speak, for the ability to use this information as a way, as a tool, in a sense, to evaluate evaluate employees' performance on the job by having examples of excellent and poor performance. Job evaluation. Job evaluation, the process of determining the monetary worth of a job. The ideal compensation system will attract and retain desired employees, will motivate current employees while also providing security, is equitable, is in compliance with legal guidelines. So, determining internal pay equity. We first determine compensable factors. What factors are going to play a role in what you'll be compensated? Determine the levels for each factor. Assign weights to each factor. Some of these factors may be more important than others. Convert weights to points for each factor. We'll be using a point system here. And then assign points to each level within a factor. Assign points to jobs. And then ultimately you want to run a regression to determine how well points predict salary midpoints. So when we have all these points designed in this way, we generate these points, and we can start to assign points to various personnel and jobs within the organization. We can then run an analysis, a regression analysis, that shows we should be able to predict the salaries of these people if this system holds some weight. So, step one, determining compensable factors. Compensable factors are going to be examples like this. Your level of responsibility, the level of complexity or difficulty of your job, skills needed, physical demands, and work environment. So let's be honest here. If you have somebody who is responsible for many, many people, let's say someone's responsible for 500 people, and you have someone else who's responsible for like 3 people, you would think that the responsibility difference there between those 2 individuals would probably have some relationship to the pay of those individuals. Same thing goes for a job that is very simple to do versus one that's very complex, or a job that requires very little skill and one that requires very highly technical skills. A job that is very, very demanding of you physically versus one that is not. A job that takes place in a very harsh and dangerous environment versus one that does not. So we have to look at all these factors and say, okay, how do they fit? What will we weigh them for each job in order to determine how this person is going to get paid? So what factors make one job worth more than another? Just think about that. Step 2, determine levels for each compensable factor. So you have to make a determination as to the value of these compensable factors in the big picture. So we have education, high school degree or less, 2-year college degree, bachelor's degree, or master's degree. Okay, then we have responsibility. Makes no decisions, makes decisions for self, makes decisions for 1 to 5 employees, makes decisions for more than 5 employees. Physical demands, lifts no heavy objects, lifts objects between 25 and 100 pounds, lifts objects more than 100 pounds. So these things, you'll have to put some weight behind them so you can establish points. So here you go. Determining the factor weights. So in this example, because some factors are more important than others, weights must be assigned to each factor and to each level within a factor. Here's the process for doing this. A job evaluation committee determines the total number of points that will be distributed among the factors. Usually the number is some multiple of 100, 500, or 1,000, and is based on the number of compensable factors. The greater the number of factors, the greater the number of points. Each factor is weighted by assigning a number of points. The more important the factor, the greater the number of points that will be assigned. So we can see here in this example, there are various weights. 20 for education, 30 for responsibility, 15 for physical demands, 10 for safety, and 25 for experience. The number of points assigned to a factor is then divided into each of the levels. If 100 points had been assigned to a factor of education, then 20 points would be assigned to each level. The total number of points for a job is compared with the salary currently being paid for the job. This comparison is typically graphed in a fashion similar to a wage trend line. We'll see that in a second. Wage trend lines are drawn based on the results of a regression formula in which salary is predicted by the number of job analysis points, as I was describing to you earlier. Jobs whose points values fall well below the line are considered underpaid. So here we have the weights that we've established, the points set based out of 1,000 total here, and we see them divvied up here. So 200 points for education, 300 for responsibility, 150 for physical demands, 100 for safety, 250 for experience. So here is an example of a completed job evaluation results here. Education, 200 points possible, responsibility 300, and physical demands 90. And we see the points distributed as such. Now, when we assign points to each level, We use these types of things here as we're assigned the points. Makes no decision, makes decisions for self, makes decisions for 1 to 5 employees, and so on and so forth. And so we'll do this for each of those levels, giving points divvied up for each category, for each level of that particular category. So assign points to each level within a factor. Here is one for a production supervisor. We see the points for education, responsibility, physical demand, safety, and experience. Now, in summary of job evaluation, it is a formal, quantitative means to determine salary level. Steps to the point system. A panel identifies important compensable factors. We rate each job on the degree of each compensable factor. Points are summed for each job to provide a score. And we plot actual salaries against the point totals for jobs. Used to set salary levels for new and existing jobs. It is the sense of making sure we have comparable worth. Now, as I alluded to earlier, I mentioned it earlier, this is a wage trend line, a line that represents the ideal relationship between the number of points that a job has been assigned using the point method of evaluation and the salary range for that job. So in this particular example, we look at several jobs which are sort of far away from the line. Being around that line is a good thing. That means that your job is falling within that realm, within that trend line. But we do have a couple of outliers here. We have D and we have H. So these particular positions being held by real live individuals seem to be 1, getting underpaid, that's D, and H, getting overpaid based on this wage trend line. So this is what would happen normally in a situation like this. D is given a raise immediately since they were underpaid. H keeps his overpaid salary, but once he leaves, the salary for the position is adjusted down. So that was a brief view of how things are done internally within an organization. We also have determining external pay equity as well. This is worth based on the external market. It is determined through salary surveys. Information obtained usually be salary range, starting salary, actual salaries paid, and benefits. Now, a salary survey, a questionnaire sent to other organizations, other businesses, to see how much they are paying their employees in positions similar to those in the organization, sending the survey. So what we're seeing here is we have one company who's in a certain business sends a salary survey to another company, probably in the same business because they have the same type of employees, to say, okay, what's the salary range, the starting salary, actual salary paid, and so on, and benefits. Why would they even do this? Well, it's sort of like a situation where they want this information too. They want to make sure that they are in the same realm in the marketplace so that we don't have people leaving to go to another company that has better salary, better benefits. And let's be honest, if you were in an organization and you were doing well, you're getting paid well, you find out an organization across town is getting paid 3 times more than you for the same job, and they have positions open, of course you're going to put your name in. So we want, both organizations want to be somewhat in the same area of pay. Okay, that's what it comes down to. That's why they would tend to want to cooperate to some extent. So here's an example of a salary survey example that we receive. It has the production and maintenance people here. It has the number of orgs, number of employees, weighted average, and it gives you the salary range that's there. So this table can be then constructed to focus on what is going on within your organization compared to external sources. Okay, as we wrap up this idea about talking about employment and how people are compensated for their employment, I just want to talk real briefly about this, something for you to think on here. Focus on ethics, compensating CEOs and executives. Our CEOs chief executive officers being paid too much, or are they worth the high compensation packages they receive? Now remember, these individuals will probably have a great deal of responsibility. All right? Is it ethical that a CEO receives a bonus when employees are being laid off or having their benefits reduced? Does high compensation for CEOs actually increase company performance? Should a company's number one focus be in making money for its shareholders? What might be other ethical factors surrounding this issue? All right, that's it for today. Thanks.